Andrew. Thank you, everybody, and great to see everybody packed in. Everyone's got a spot, and it'll be nice and warm in here by the time we're finished. How long do we actually have? 4 o'clock? Yeah, 45. Yeah. All right, why don't we just open in prayer and commit this time to the Lord. Heavenly Father, we just thank you that you are present in this room. We thank you that you know the state of every heart, you know the state of every church, you know the things that we're facing, and you know the answers to help us move through them. And so, Lord, we just pray that you would direct us and guide us in this time we have together, that it would maximise the impact for everyone. Amen. Awesome. All right, well, I have a few different ways that I mentioned to Andrew before that we could go here. And what I wanted to do was just get a sense first for the room, and I guess I want to scratch maybe where you're itching. I don't want to just do, oh, that was a great presentation on that topic, but wasn't relevant to anybody in the room. How many senior pastors have we got here? Hang on, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who's on staff, paid staff here, whether it's part-time or full-time? Okay. Who's leading a whole ministry area? Okay. Who's leading maybe a team or a group or things like that? Yeah. And who's just on team serving here, just wanting to grow and learn? Yeah. Awesome. So we've got basically every step along the way. Which churches you have a established leadership pipeline in place? Do you use that terminology? Pipelines?
We'd like to.
Yeah. I find that. Okay, so I find that. So I'll give you a bit of a history of our church, and just so you can get it for context, just so you understand where I'm speaking from. So we started in 14 years ago in 2012. We took over a church that had attendance on a Sunday of 70 people, and it had been 150 before the problems that I alluded to, and it shrunk, it kind of halved over that time. And after we came, it very quickly went back up to 150, and then has basically, if I was to draw a graph over 14 years, it's basically just been steady growth every year since. And I've felt like I've been chasing a runaway train the whole time we've been there. Like, there's more people, we need more of this, we need more of that, we don't have enough money. So the church has grown because, I don't know if your experience is, but finances are lagging everything else. They're kind of like the last thing to go up. So your attendance goes up, your bills go up, your problems go up, and then eventually your income goes up, right? That's how it kind of works. But so most Sundays now we have about 900 in attendance. And we've just started a new location, so we're running 3 locations now. So our main location is the main one, and it's probably between 700 and 800 average attendance. We do 2 services, so 350 to 400 in each service, 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. We also do youth on a flight, but I'm not counting in any of our numbers. So there'll be 100 teenagers in youth now every Friday night, and we've just started a monthly young adult service, about 50 or so. It's just like fresh, hot off the press that everyone's really excited about. So, and then one of our other locations sits about 150 average attendance, and that's the new one that we only started in February, because half our church lived in that part of town, and so we decided to plant there. And then we've got this Darwin City, which meets in a hotel in the city and gets about 100 every week. So that, just to give you a context. So we've gone from 70 people to, which is probably close to 7, I don't know in the room right now, right? I don't know, maybe 50. So we have steadily grown the whole time, which means that we've bumped into every problem that you can imagine along the way. And we're also in a very transient city where at one point we had, I remember going through this with one of our staff, we had 1,300 names on the list. This is whenever it was, 6 years ago or something like that. And over a 3-year period, the church had grown maybe an extra 100 people. It was through the COVID year, so things were like Darwin was lucky we didn't really get too badly affected by COVID like you guys did. So the church had grown, so now we had 1,400 people, but 1,000 people of that were different people.
Wow.
So 1,000 people had left the Northern Territory and moved interstate, which is what happens. Most people live in Darwin for 18 months. So 1,000 people had gone, but 1,100 people had come. So, and at the same time, we're seeing a lot of salvations growth as well. So, so it's a mess. And so when I say we're chasing after a runaway train, we've never really felt like what's happening is planned and structured and under control. It's that whole duck, on the surface everything looks great, and underneath the leaves are going 100 miles an hour, paddling away. So that's one of the things that I've found as we've grown is that we have had to get clearer and clearer about who we are and what we're about. It used to be like anyone can come, but now anyone can come, but we're not going to be the church for everyone. We know this is the type of church that we are. And when you're first getting started, you're just desperate for any bums on seats. But after a while, especially when you're looking you've got to create the right culture for your team and for the church. And so very clear on the culture of who we are, defining this is who we are. So like I said, there's so many different ways. I'll just do a quick overview, then I'll probably take some questions and then we can unpack any. So if anything I say you'd like more information on, just write it down when we do the questions. We'll come back to it. So defining team culture, that's been so important. Defining the vision of the church, who we are, a vision statement, which is different to your goals, which is different to your mission. Like every church has got the same mission, right? I hope so. Great commission going to all the world. So, the church's mission statement should be the easiest thing in the world to write. Make disciples, there we go, that's our mission. But what's the vision of the church? Which means, what would it look like around here if we made disciples? And we hit our goals that we've got. What would it look like? It'll look different from every church. Every church in this room would look different if you were reaching more and more people in an increasing way in your town. What would your church look like? It's like, what would it look like in 10 years if the type of culture that we're trying to build and the type of disciple that we're trying to make, so that's another thing we do, we articulate the type of disciple that we're trying to make. So, because I did this with a room of our C3 pastors, I'm sure you guys wouldn't do this, but I got everyone to write down their definition of what a disciple is. And then we started reading some out. And no two people wrote the same thing.
Wow.
And I reckon that would happen here as well. Is to write down your definition of a disciple. We haven't got time to do it. It'd be fun, but you would see that everyone would write something different. And yet you put it all together and it's not conflicting, it's just expressed differently. And so, but as a church, imagine if you're a football team, now your sport is AFL, right? You have set plays and the team practice them and they call them and they know what play's coming up. And imagine if when you called a play, everyone had a different version of what that play was. the strategy of the football team. Imagine if everyone had a different, or my interpretation of this play is this. It's like, what's going to happen? Chaos. And you've got to get beaten. So everyone needs to know what it is that you're trying to do. And the bigger the church gets, everybody needs to know what you're trying to do. And this is where problems can get in, is if you can't articulate what it is that you're trying to do. So we clearly articulate what a disciple is. So the definition that we use for a disciple, you ask any of our team, any of our leaders, they will tell you, because we need to make sure when we talk about making disciples, what are we talking about? And so for us, a disciple is someone who's committed to being with Jesus, becoming like Jesus, and doing the things that Jesus does. So that's relationship, transformation, and mission. That's a disciple. And so they're the three key aspects of a disciple. And so then a C3 Darwin disciple is someone who is strong in faith. Sorry, I got that wrong. Secure in faith, strong in character, established in community, active in mission, and driven by eternal hope. So if you're in our church for 3 to 5 years, which we hope minimum some people will be, even though some people will be out shorter, but we're reaching more and more locals all the time these days. This will describe you. You're someone who is secure in your faith. So it doesn't matter what your friend can bring, some fact or some claim from some atheist or some deconstructor or some whatever. All our young people, they're unshakable in their faith, they're secure in faith. So we're going to try and build that type of disciple. We're going to make sure that as a disciple, you're equipped so that you can be strong in character. So when temptation comes your way, which the world's full of, and we want to make sure that you are unshakable in your character. It's important to us that that's the type of disciple that we make, that they're established in community, so that they're not, knocked out of fellowship. They're in together and they're interwoven into church life, into all the things that happen. We say there's a seat for you in church, but there's also a seat at a table for you during the week. That's important to us, to be established in community. Because if all they do is come to church on a Sunday, they're not established in community, they're just coming to church on a Sunday. So it's important but if they're sitting at a table during the week, it's a Bible study, meal, fellowship, all that sort of stuff, then they're established in community. Active in mission. So you're not just, once again, you're not a spectator. God's got ministry for you. God's got a call for you. There's a place for you to be involved in. And then driven by eternal hope, which people just, because otherwise people get overwhelmed in the moment with whatever's going on right now, like COVID, for example. People who, if you're driven by eternal hope, you can zoom out. And you can find a way through, and you can bring everyone else with you. Other than just kind of like going into a spiral. So if you've got the eternal, so that we've articulated those 5 things. So every preaching series we do as a church ticks off on one or more of those things. So our preaching team, when we come together, we're preparing the diet of preaching. Well, it has to work towards those things, because that's the type of disciple that we're trying to make. And so it's a great filter. And so it gives you clarity and purpose moving forward, and that the whole church then rallies around that, and you can see what's happening. So we're making, so in a nutshell, from the biggest level, make the right kind of disciple. This is my church philosophy. Make the right kind of disciple, and then from among them, choose the right kind of leader. That's good. That's our entire church growth, church operational, church whatever philosophy, and then from among them, go and plant churches and do it all over again. I suppose that's how we do it. The two things. So make the right kind of disciple, and then from among them, choose the right kind of leaders. Good. And so it's up to you what you define as the type of disciple you're trying to make, and the type of leader that you're trying to raise into the. So that's where the leadership pipeline comes in, is that we need more leaders. And so any questions at this point? feel like it's a good time to take a question and have a sip of wine.
When you were 70 people, how clearly defined were those things then?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. No. So I had no idea. I remember the first day in the church saying, God, what do I even do here? I don't even know what. I didn't know. And God, in His mercy, I was on my knees in the pastor's office. I'm a pastor now. I've got an office, for goodness sake, and I've got no idea what to do next. And I felt like I saw in a split second, like almost a vision, but it was, in my head. I saw a scroll come down, and there was like 3 or 4 things written on it. And I thought, that's just what I got to do. And I can't even remember what they were. You'd think that would be such a profound moment. But I know the first one. Do you know what the first one was? Make Sundays fun. Because the church, and I didn't realise the extent of it, how hurt and broken the church were. We just needed to lighten it up a little bit, bring a little bit of joy into the place. And it was like, literally just make Sundays fun. And one of the other things was, because I'd come from being the 2IC in a church of 500, and my job as the 2IC there, the associate pastor, I was doing systems, structures, small groups, and I had systems and structures in place like you wouldn't believe. Like I had pathways and pipelines of how we were doing everything, and I felt like God, like, just said, don't do any of that sort of stuff. It's like handcuffed. Like don't build any structures. Don't do any things like that. Just let life. Just let this thing breathe, because you can structure the life out of churches if you're not careful. And that's one of my things that I've experienced. I wouldn't say that that's probably law, but we're always looking for systems and structures to take us to the next level. I kind of feel like the systems and structures, we should prepare them, but they're never going to create growth.
That's great.
The life creates the growth. The whole, the life of the Holy Spirit, the life giving, everything we want to do. That's what creates the systems and structures support that. So they do not drive growth. They just support it. And if you go too hard on the systems and structures, they'll just strangle the growth. They're just there to support it. And so at 70 people, I didn't have any of this. It's all been evolving. In 5 years' time, I'll be hopefully, this is what we do. I've learned so much from there. If you look back at every time, you should be growing the whole time as a leader. Don't get set in your ways. So, in fact, the culture of the church that we took on was so contradictory to the type of culture of the church that we wanted to lead that I looked around and we grew very quickly to 200 people. And at that point, you need to have some serious leaders appointed and carrying things. I didn't appoint any other leaders because the culture wasn't right. And what you appoint as a leader becomes what you get more of. That's right. So do not be hasty in the laying on of hands. That was kind of the scripture that guided me there. Even though every church growth textbook would have said you need to appoint this, you need to appoint this, you need to appoint this, I felt very strongly in God that no, because we just needed to get the right culture, the right people to lead the right way. Because if you put a leader in who's not ready and not carrying the right heart, it's going to damage people. So we did a lot ourselves early on, but knowing that we had a plan, not that that's what we wanted to do, but we had a plan to raise up leaders, the right kind of leaders. Yeah. Next question.
Where you're leading to that number, it's 900
Yes.
in those few years. How do you measure people who come to the leadership and there might obviously there's some criteria in terms of characters and so forth, but what is the length of those time to come, okay, here is a portfolio that you just lead? Is there, how do you...
So yeah, just to make sure I understand the question correctly, what are the qualifications I'm looking for in a leader?
Yeah.
And how long does it take to...
To bring them on board and...
Yeah. Okay, so... Yeah. So some of this might surprise you. Make the right kind of disciple. So I need to be sure that this person's the right kind of disciple before they become a leader. And so it's all the discipleship, character, spiritual formation, those sorts of things that we're looking for. But at the same time, we're developing people in their capacity to lead and their competence to lead, and looking for certain competencies to lead at different levels, because there's different levels of leadership. So at the basic level, someone just leads themselves. So if you're on a team, you lead yourself. You have to turn up on time, you have to dress appropriately, all those basic self-leadership things. At the next level, you're reporting to someone who's leading volunteers, leading a group of volunteers, and there's certain skills and competencies. Some people can turn up and be told what to do, but they can't then be responsible for other people. They need to learn the competency of leading volunteers. Other people are great. I've got examples of all of this, people in our church, someone who's fantastic at leading a group of volunteers, but could not then transition to the next level of leading leaders. It's just you're good at telling people what to do, but can't tell people why, can't be challenged or questioned or anything because they just don't have the emotional capacity to deal with that. So that person I will not put them as a leader of a department or a ministry, no matter how gifted or skilled they are, until they learn how to actually, some of the emotional things to actually lead people who are leaders. And then leading ministry areas. So there's different levels. So I'm looking for basic discipleship, but as you get into the higher levels, that discipleship stuff is way more important in terms of the levels of spiritual formation. So it's kind of like two train tracks going along together. You don't have to be a fully fledged mature disciple of Christ before you can lead anything. You just get leadership responsibilities commensurate with your growth as a disciple. Some people, we've had examples where there's people who've joined our church and they're clearly a mature Christian, mature follower. They were a leader. We just had someone who moved up from Canberra and they've worked for the government, but in their church in Canberra they were leading Alpha. And they're here for 18 months and they want to get involved. I'm not going to say, well, be in the church for 12 months and then we'll see how you go. So what I do is I call them, give me a pastor's details. And so I call their pastor. And I'll say, hey, we just had Cindy Mitchell. Cindy Mitchell and her husband arrived in church. And they said, and they're like, oh, those guys, they're amazing. They led Alpha, they did this, she was a board member of our church, was so disappointed with them. They're going to be such a blessing to your church. And I said, and any issues we need to know about, anything like that? So I'm quite happy to, so I put them straight on the pathway of leadership in our church. Just needed to get some culture stuff and things like that. So there's no set way, there's just pathways for every particular person. Yeah. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah. How involved are you in regards to your leaders appointing leaders?
Yeah, great question. I say to them, so our structure, can I use this? Go for it. Sorry, Vince. So I don't know if you've seen the leadership pipeline diagram before. Let's go this way. So, team member, we call them a facilitator, a coordinator, a director, and a location pastor. And so we've got 3 locations that have that structure, and then they report to the senior pastor. Just me. So a team, so that's our leadership pipeline. Is anyone familiar with that diagram?
I feel bad.
Okay, that's from the book. That's a book, leadership pipeline. It was a corporate business leadership book. Some people freak out when we start talking about some of that stuff in church, but the reality is you can see this all throughout Scripture anyway.
Yeah.
Moses and Jethro, like leaders of tens and hundreds and thousands, and it's basically that. So all that to say,
Yes.
I appoint those leaders, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I am involved in the process of appointing those people. I'm informed before the moment happens. So, hey, we've got about to appoint a new coordinator. We're thinking this person. Because sometimes there's stuff I know from a confidential pastoral appointment that means that that's actually not appropriate for that person.
Yeah.
But you don't need to know why. But,
Yeah.
so I get informed. But I don't get informed of that.
Yeah.
These guys will get informed of that. And just kind of, it's a rolling, descending kind of
Yeah.
thing. So different levels, yeah, it's a great question. So for example here, let's use the kids' church team. So we've got kids' church workers. Our facilitators are your Sunday team leader for each age group. So you might have 3 or 4 different age groups. So your team leader for that Sunday is that facilitator. They report to a coordinator who's that age group leader. So we have Sparks, Livewires, and Transformers. These are 3 age groups. So we've got a coordinator for Sparks who oversees a team. So we've got a different person rostered on every week as the team leader. They're the facilitator, and then team who turn up to it. So, and then we've got a kids director. So our kids director, we don't call them a kids pastor. So wording is very important for us as well. Because the problem is, what happens if this person's 21 years old? I'm the pastor. If they're called pastor, everyone thinks that they're going to have the same experience and training and responsibility as me. It's just unfair. And then, same with, especially with youth pastors, we just went away from that completely. So we've got directors, youth director, kids director, all that sort of stuff. So the pastor is from this level, credentialed by our movement pastors.
Yeah.
So, because youth pastors aren't credentialed by the movement. So we just use the word pastor for people who are credentialed.
Yeah.
That's just the direction that we went, just to clear things up. So kids director, who reports to the location pastor. So so then we've got a youth team, then we've got connect groups director who oversees coaches of group leaders. But we don't use the word leader anywhere. They're all leaders. And a lot of people are scared by the term. If I started calling this person a leader, they'd freak out. They are a leader. So we just avoid the term.
Yeah.
So we've got facilitators, coordinators, directors. The reason we do that is because the legal name of our church is not C3 Darwin, because it joined C3 after it's been around for a long time. It's called Faith Centre Darwin. So that's Faith FCD, just as an easy way of remembering it. Just in case you think there's any like super method. You can copy it if you want, but you just copy Faith Centre Darwin. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at every level of leadership, there is I talked about a new set of competencies, and that's what the bend in this pipeline represents. Like leadership is not a straight line. You've got to unlearn things and learn new things at every level of leadership. And this is probably relevant for this room here and for every single one of us. As you progress, and when I say progress, we draw it upside down, not because you're going deeper into serving. You're not going higher into a ladder. So that's intentionally drawn in that way. Because and you're carrying more and more weight. So I like this. I like drawing it this way. And it's not a race to see how far you can go.
No.
The idea is to lead at the level that God's calling you to lead in any particular season. And I say that in any particular season. Because right now you might feel, I could be a location pastor, but God's calling you to be a coordinator in this season. Be happy being a coordinator. And if there's another season where He's calling you to do that, or vice versa, you might be a location pastor and God's calling you to be a location pastor, but you think, I'd be happy just being, at this level, in that right season. Just the goal is to lead at whatever level God's calling you to lead right now. Now, the whole point is not everyone can become a senior pastor. If everyone becomes a senior pastor, then who are they preaching to? Who's running the kids? So everyone's got a role, and it's just helping people understand that this isn't a hierarchy in that worldly sense. This is just structuring for the life of the church. And so, but you do need to grow, because here's what we do: is you get your most faithful team member and you make them the leader. But sometimes they're just not a great leader, and they're better off. So why keep them as a leader if they're not enjoying it and they're not leading it well? Let them be a team member and serve faithfully, because maybe that's all God is calling them to. When I say all, maybe that's what God is calling them to. So we push people into leadership who just aren't ready for it, aren't called for it. But there are people who God is calling to it. So let's identify that. So there's 3 things we ask them of every person to do at every level. We're asking them to learn what it means to serve in their role. And that's for everyone. Learn what it means to serve. We want them to lead well. We just want them to faithfully do what's required of them in that role, whatever the level is. And thirdly, we want them to multiply. We want them to train and to teach and have an apprentice, have someone that they're showing. We've all seen it, maybe you've seen it, where there's always a team in church where there's like one person that kind of does everything. That'll become a bottleneck. And so we want to always have an apprentice. So we've got a culture in our team, just like, who's your apprentice? Who's your apprentice? And so everyone knows to ask that question. Everyone knows that the question's going to be asked of them. So it avoids the awkward one, where for that one person who will just never ever be asking anyone else to help them. So as a facilitator, we want them to learn the role as a facilitator. We provide training at every level. We want them to execute, to lead well, and then we want them to be training other facilitators. Some facilitators are called to become coordinators. Remember, these guys lead leaders. Right? And there's a different set of skills to lead leaders and get the best out of leaders. So we want them to learn what that is, we want them to lead well, and then we want them to multiply. And so our location pastors, it's like raise up some new location pastors for new church plants. That's good. So it just goes on and on at different levels of leadership, and then it's structured for every team and for every location. So every location has a location pastor, has kids director, youth director, groups director, welcome director. We call that welcome. It's like everything from the street to the seat. So car park, greeters, service hosts, ushers, cafe, all that.
When your church grew from like 70 to, a few hundred, did you find that your leadership base grew first, or did God give you leaders, or was it like you just got leaders from the growth in that process?
I tell you, the biggest problems we've ever had is when I put a leader on who hadn't come through. Yeah, because it takes longer, but we're called to make disciples, right? So what most people, the mistake most churches make is this. They do leadership placement, not leadership development. We're not called to do that.
Yeah.
We're called to do that because that's disciple making. Right? We're called to disciple and grow people. What we do is we look around, it's like, who's ready to be a leader? Like, I need a new leader, can you be the leader? Instead of a year ago, starting working with these people, teaching them leadership so that then when they're ready to go. So that's, when I say this is aspirational, this isn't always how we've done it.
Sure.
But this is how this is what we're aiming for. Is that there's a whole bunch of people, facilitators now, that are already trained, we just don't need them yet. But we'll have them when we're ready. Because we just, your kids' church leader moves town, or we need a new kids' church leader. But be thinking now about training for the future. It's not just trying to fix the problem when it happens. And if you see leadership development as part of discipling disciples, it doesn't, and I think that it's a streamline. There's been this unnecessary, it's like wedge trying to separate leadership development from disciple making. But yes, I think that there's a whole lot that crossover. Yeah. Yes.
Do you have resources that you use to develop leaders to develop each of those leadership levels, rather than, I mean, obviously you've got on-the-ground training, you've got learning from people who are at the next, the discipleship in the sense of learning from the person who's the next level up. But do you have resources that you use in order to make sure that those skills are put in place systematically so that by the time someone gets to that level or is ready to be taken up to that level, that they have those skills in place and it's like, we know what we're getting?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so the first time as we were building this, I taught every level of leadership development. I found resources. I found a thing called, there was the Lifeway Baptist in America. They've got some great resources through a thing called Ministry Grid. And I found Leadership Pipeline training for, they called them leaders, and then they had ministry directors. And the teaching was just phenomenal. So I just subscribed to the thing and built our own, said everyone watch these videos, and then we come together, and then I just did a training for an hour or so on the video that they just watched, answering questions kind of like this from the video. And then on every topic, on what level of discipleship are we calling you to at this level? What level of character? What level of, what does it look like to carry vision for your team in this area? What does it look like? How are you making disciples in this area? There's lots of different topics, and it was phenomenal teaching. So we just put everyone through it. I ran it all the first time. Now I train location pastors and the ministry directors for our main location. They train the coordinators with all the material, and they train, and then coordinators train facilitators. And it's all set material that they go through that is very discipleship, character, but also capacity. It's actually, there's great material out there. There's lots of different places you can get stuff. Mac Blake's another good guy.
Just a dumb question about C3. not
Yeah.
knowing anything about C3. So you've sourced this from other places. There wasn't something existing in C3 that was given to you. Okay. Is there now? Do you know, or has it been?
We're all autonomous
Okay.
local churches.
Sure.
So some of our churches lean into different things. So Mac Lake, who I just mentioned, he's
Yeah.
consulted with a couple of our bigger churches.
Sure.
Yeah. No, so there's no prescribed.
Sure.
Obviously, when it comes to, we've got a Bible college
Yeah, sure.
that teaches all our doctrine and all that sort of stuff. So that's all covered.
Yeah.
But in terms of leadership,
Sure.
So 2 questions. I'm just looking at the time. I think 2 things I'd like you to speak into. A bit of good and more stuff that we've looked at as a church about different sized churches and helping our team realise we actually aren't a church of 75 people anymore, and we can't do things that way anymore. And trying to help our leaders really rise up in being carriers of the vision. Anything I guess all of that you're doing is helping train that. But any specifics you've had through the journey of making that work well, but also like that's ministry structure, but I guess governmentally, is it the right word? Structure-wise, changes you've made within the last 15 years.
at
Is
a
there any-
board level or from a like policy.
Structure of, church, I guess, leader, you've probably got a board separate to the ministry team leaders, and just thinking of any key shifts or changes you've made in that churches 200-300 sort of around here that might be looking at needing to make, you think might be helpful?
So I mean, in terms from the board level, I feel like board members need training and need here's me with my C3 Australia hat on, leading C3 Australia, looking across our churches, 90 churches across Australia. Churches that have problems with it, you can often trace back to maybe an incompetent board, where an issue blows up. And so the board is super important, that you have people who are high capacity and competent, but also, so they have that understanding of what governance is, but they also mature disciples. It's so important as well, not just ticking one box, but not the other. So obviously, it's super important, all the stuff, the legal stuff that you need to do, like with your safe church and child protection, workplace health and safety, all of this stuff, I've grown to what I used to view it probably as a necessary evil. I've changed the way I view it now, and I see it as a license to operate. So I've changed the way I look at that. So I used to think, I've got to do all this begrudgingly. But now I feel like church should be the safest place in the world.
Yeah.
And we need to be leading the way in all of this sort of stuff. And just like to drive a car on the road, you need a license, you need to go to a test, you need to hit all these things. I think for a church to operate, you need to prove that you're hitting all of those things. And then as a national director, I can actually have confidence in our churches that the wrong things aren't happening in the churches. So that's part of that. In terms of what was your start of your question was, as the church is growing,
helping the leaders can be carriers of the vision.
Carriers of vision, yeah. So, who knows their church's vision statement? So if I point at you right now, can you tell me your church's vision statement?
No, that's the mission statement.
So there'll be no surprises when I tell you ours, which is we're a life-giving, disciple-making, multi-ethnic church that sees lives transformed by the presence, the power, and the love of Jesus.
There you are.
And hopefully, our whole team will be able to tell you that, particularly because in our leadership monthly meeting that I have with our location pastors, the last 3 months we've just done vision, making sure they all know that and that they're all teaching them that, and that everybody can actually tell, well, this is the vision of the church. And so so I think as the pastor, you need to drive home the importance of people understanding what the vision is and what does it look like not just that they can quote the vision, but this is what we've been working at. So last Sunday, just gone, we had all our location pastors at our house, and we were going into detail of what does it look like in our location if we hit that. What does our kids' church look like? What does our kids' church team, what does our music team look like? How are we preparing for a future where we're doing this? And making sure that people... So the senior pastor's job is to craft the vision. The location pastors, or just where it is, to contextualise the vision. And every level down, there's another contextualisation of what it means. So craft the vision and cast the vision. Is carry the vision. There's contextualise. It's so important because that's where churches if it's Chinese whispers, the further you go down, you end up with a different church here than what you've got here. And that's why that's the problem that a lot of churches have when they start growing. And it's not control, it's continuity and alignment.
Yeah.
So that there's coordination throughout the body.
Just sometimes the trickiest thing to navigate is your relational investment. And in that leadership structure, where would your greatest relational investment sit right now with what you have? But where did it sit when you sort of went to 150, 200? What were you pouring yourself into?
Okay, so great. So when we were 150, 200, we just cut half of that out.
Yeah.
We had teams, we had facilitators who I called leaders at the time, and had me. And so I was investing into that level. And as the church grows, you just add in more levels as needed. And some teams in our church, like one of our locations, like our city, this is our Malak location, our city location, so that's our big one, it's got 800 on a Sunday, but our city location is 100 on a Sunday. They don't have coordinators at all. We just jump that because we've got local team leaders and then the person who oversees the department. It's not big enough to, so you just drop out the levels that you don't need. And I always lead closely at level. Yeah. And from a distance there. And you sort of still pass everyone, high five everyone else in the church, but I'm not, the investment of my time is highest, obviously. But the bigger you get, the more you realise that it's not that dependent on you. That's probably one of the biggest shifts, going from a small church to a big church. It's like there's so much more required of you at a small church. You know, when people would say, let me offload on my high hobby horse right now. People say that big churches are built on the cult of personality of the leader. No, small churches are.
Yeah.
Because that's the only leader in a lot of small churches. They're more dependent on that one person. It's like our church could function completely fine without me. I'm not there this week. I'm not there on the weekend. I'm not there next weekend. I'm away a lot. And it functions completely fine without me. It's not dependent on me. Whereas when we were a small church with 70 people, if I got sick, man, we were in trouble. I couldn't turn up to preach on Sunday. So anyway, I think there's a lot that needs to be rethought. We're called to disciple people, develop people.
It's good.
And release other people into the work of the ministry, Ephesians 4, right? That's our job. So, and that's how you're going to keep growing. You just need to make sure you've got the structures in place and don't just place people into leadership. Develop leaders. It's probably the biggest advice I can. Because you can break people if they're not ready for it. And then the whole team breaks and everyone suffers. So, do that. It's the hard work developing. But that's the cycle.
I feel like we get easy go.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, looks like I lost track of time. Sorry.
No, it's all good. Just thinking, is there any other? I know you've lots of different directions you thought you could go. Is there any other key takeaway things or ideas that you little gems you've got for us that you're just busting to still share? You're going to leave and go, oh no, I didn't say this. Or
Okay, there was one little tiny thing. If you bear with me, I'll give it to you in 30 seconds. I just need to get the wording right. Okay. This is just something I stumbled upon about a year ago and we've been doing with our team, which has been so helpful. A lot of the issues that you'll have is where offence and relationships break down in church life. It all comes down to expectations. And I got this from Pete Scazzero. Who knows Pete Scazzero? Yeah. Who's done this? Pete Scazzero's expectations framework. Anyone? Okay. Well, you're going to love this. Okay. 4 keys to healthy expectations. Number 1 is expectations must be conscious. Are you aware that you have this this expectation? Now, this is you as a leader. You have expectations for the people that you lead. And you have expectations of the leaders above you. Every single one of us does. So there's expectations you have on those you lead, and there's expectations you have for those who lead you. Are you aware of the expectations that you have? Because if you're not even aware of it, you will live in frustration when they don't meet these expectations, because you're not even aware. Like, there's something wrong, I don't even know what it is, right? They need to be realistic. So once you can articulate it in your mind, then you need to say, well, is this realistic? I've got an expectation this person's going to be at church every Sunday and lead this. It's like, well, is that realistic? Probably not. It has to be spoken. To them, someone you lead, I've got this expectation of you. Most of the time, we have the expectation, but we've never told them that's our expectation. And how can they possibly ever live up to it? And we live in perpetual frustration because people aren't doing the things that we expect of them, but we haven't actually made it clear to them. And then finally, they need to be agreed. Have they agreed to this expectation? Now you've got healthy expectations.
That's right.
When it's conscious, realistic, spoken and agreed, and now you can hold them accountable.
Sorry, what was the name of the person?
Peter Scazzero, Scazzero. I like to think of him as George Costanza from Seinfeld. You've got to understand that when you're an Aussie reading this stuff, otherwise you just go into this total wrong place. Like, he was a New York, his dad was a taxi driver in New York. Like, have you ever seen a New York taxi driver? They're the most pent up crap. Like, so this is him. So he's had to learn how to chill out. But a lot of Australians read his stuff and we're already chilled out. And we're just like, it's like we're on Valium or something. Like, you need to understand who he is before you get too much into his stuff. Because same with, what's that other bloke's name? John Mark Comer. We're very careful about what we read with this stuff.
Agreed.
It needs to be ruthless elimination of John Mark Comer. Won't go there. All right, so there you go.
Fantastic. Thank you.